Hey, Crystal.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, very busy.
Yeah. I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I'm like, wait, where are the polls?
Oh goodness.
I'm gonna try
Uh,
and add them real quick in here. I don't see them.
it says loading when I'm trying to look at them. How are you feeling today? How was your weekend?
No, those are not the ones.
Okay. Oh,
Hold on.
suggestion. Okay. Instant polls. My recent polls. Yeah, I don't see them.
Save as draft.
And we joined the main one. Okay, perfect.
You're the right one.
Yes. Maybe you created them. Oh, what's that? Hold on one second. This is Crystal. I have a lost phone. Okay, sorry, I had a lost phone and they just finally called it. Usually we have some P. There we go.
Am I in the right one? I feel like
We should. There we go.
because Sadie said she was gonna jump on early too to test it.
Let me, we should be. Okay, I'm gonna leave really quick and I'll be right back.
Okay.
There are some. Yes, we are good, Stephanie.
Okay, thanks. I feel like there's a request coming through from a different meeting.
Hey, Crystal, I think I saw Sadie in the other meeting. Where did Crystal go?
Hi, Sadie.
Hello.
Sadie, do you want to share your screen? Just test it to make sure you can share your screen.
Yeah, just give me a second. Okay,
I
that
can
work?
see it. Yep. Thank you.
Do you want me to leave it up or take it down?
Yeah, you can leave it out. That's good. All right, it is 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. For today's session, we're going to be discussing how we can protect our energy so we can continue to show up, so we can continue to contribute and do meaningful work in a way that's sustainable for each of us. And so this session is actually part of our Women at Saffron Self-Leadership Development Series. And today is the second of 4 sessions, and it's going to be focused, each of them, on building practical tools that we can use in our day-to-day. So I'm really excited to welcome back Sadie Wackett, who will be facilitating today's discussion. Sadie, as always, she always brings a thoughtful approach to everything that we discuss and very practical ways to approach the topics. And so she's been really great at helping us kind of translate some of these ideas and make it something real and actionable. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sadie, and she's going to guide us through today's session.
Thank you, Stephanie, and it's a real pleasure to be back again, seeing you all virtually. So today's session, we're going to spend about 90 minutes, and there's quite a lot here to go through. So it's going to be a very deliberate session, very practical, and as Stephanie said, it's my goal that you're going to be able to leave with tools that you can use. So with that, we're just going to get started. All right, so again, welcome back to people who were here for the first session, and welcome to those of you who this is your first session in the series. This is another session that's going to give you tools that you can use, and hopefully you've already got access to the workbook. I'm wondering if there's a possibility of attaching that in the chat if anybody doesn't have access to it, but there is a workbook that is designed to accompany all that I'm going to cover today, and we're going to spend the next 90 minutes on really unpacking what's draining you and what you can do about it. So this is as I said, this is the part 2 of a journey. It isn't a one-off. The last time we met, we talked about a topic called Define Your Presence, where we looked at patterns, beliefs, narratives, things that really shape how we visibly show up in our lives. And today we're going to dive into the energy that lets that inner game that we talked about stay sustainable. So the last time we met, I introduced this idea of an iceberg, and I've just got it here as a reminder and a refresher, because what we talked about was what's above the surface is everything that we see, everything that we do, our actions, our behaviors, the choices we make. But underneath that, 95% of us is actually underneath the surface. It's it's called, I call it our inner operating system. So it's our subconscious, everything that's running the show based on our values, our beliefs, all the ways in which our experiences have conditioned and shaped us in our lives today. So if you weren't here last time, it doesn't matter. You'll still get everything you need today. I just wanted to draw that connection between the two sessions. So what I'd like to do to kick us off with really is take a look at what's happened since we last met. So was there anything that you applied following the last session? And I've just given you a bit of a refresher of what it was about. And I wanted to just see if we can have anybody just putting in the chat, was there anything that you tried out, an experiment you made, anything you noticed from the first session, no matter how small it was, that you want to share with the group? And for me, I mean, one of these things I remember us talking about last time was how we become more intentional about the impact that we want to have, the outcome that we want from a conversation or a session. And that's something I've consistently been asking myself before an important conversation or a meeting is, what is the outcome I want to have from this? And giving myself a chance to pause. So maybe it was that you were speaking earlier in a meeting, maybe it was the 60-second reset that we went through, or asking a clarifying question instead of waiting to speak. Is there anything that came up for you? Yeah, Stephanie, I know you talked to a couple of team members who spoke up in a meeting without having fully baked responses. That's a perfect example and a great first start. If anyone else wants to throw in anything that they might have done. We'll let you continue to pop those in as we carry on. Okay, so today's session, I want to just briefly walk through what the outcomes are that we want to take away from our conversation here today. So what we want to, I want you to walk away with is another opportunity for you to have a practical action here. So this is about your energy. This is about how you can understand what's fueling you, what's draining you, and what strategies you can apply to actually build your capacity, build your energy on a much more intentional level. And so we're gonna walk through these 5 areas. Again, you'll see them in your workbook. We're gonna break down this myth of what we mean by balance. So why is this actually a myth? What is it really? What's the old version that we've been talking about that's actually just setting us up to fail? How can we think about our capacity? And this is something that I want to dive into in a moment, but this isn't about time management. This is much more about capacity management and how we understand where our energy is coming from and where it's depleted. I want to raise up some patterns that we will find familiar in ourselves. So what are the patterns that we find ourselves falling into that are draining us, and how can we try and break those patterns that we're falling into? Then we're going to talk about boundaries, and I'm going to work with you on a few scripts that you can try and use. And then I hope that you can take away at least one commitment from this that you can take forward before our next session. Okay. Before I go any further, I wanted to see if, Stephanie, you wanted to do your poll at this stage.
For the balanced life, we can do the poll. Yep. Hold on one second. Let me launch that. Okay, you should be able to see it now.
Okay, so before we dive into this today, in your workbooks, there is a question here, which is about what has to be true to have a balanced life in your mind? We talk about balance a lot in narratives daily. this ideal of having kind of quote work-life balance. But what do you think has to be true in order to have a balanced life? And I'd love you just to share whatever you think in the poll that Stephanie's just facilitating here. Okay, I'll let you all continue to fill that in while I just finish the housekeeping here before we get started. Right, so and then when we finish this, then we can just take a quick look at what the poll has shown. So like the last session, this is a very low pressure environment for you guys. You can keep your cameras off. My goal is for this to be as interactive as possible, however. And so we really love it when you can chat together, not just because it's interesting to see what responses you have to some of the questions, but really because as you chat and as you share your experiences, it normalizes it for the rest of the group. It means that we feel less alone when we feel like there are other people experiencing similar things to ourselves. So it's good to hear, and it's good to be able to understand that other people are in the same boat as us. It doesn't mean you have to share anything super personal. It just means that you are able to, we're able to share some of our experiences together, and this is designed to be interactive. Additionally, there's, like I've already said, there's a workbook for you to follow along, and you'll see at the top left of the different slides what section of the workbook we're on. Okay, so for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Sadie, and I am an executive coach. I am also a founder of an organization called Life Intended, and I'm a former chief people officer as well. So I've worked in aerospace engineering for the last 20 plus years in organizations like Safran. And this work is really important to me, the work that I'm doing now on self-leadership, because what I've realized in my career in HR and leadership development is we spend a lot of time training leaders in skills development. But what we don't invest a lot of time in is helping us to really understand ourselves, because we bring ourselves to work every single day, and we can offer people all the tools in the world. But unless we are aware of how we're using the tools and why we're using the tools that we have, and what is driven by us as individuals, like I said, underneath the surface, then the tools are only 50% effective. So this is really important to me, because I believe that in order for us to be effective in our lives and in our work, it has to start with us. We have to start with being able to lead ourselves first. So a lot of this content today is developed through my own personal experience as well. I am from the UK. I moved over to the US. I knew nobody here. I came over with my husband and my dog, and I had my daughter very early when we moved over here. I didn't know anyone, had no family, very big job, baby, traveling around, was constantly trying to prove myself in this new world. And as a result, I ended up driving myself into the ground, and my health suffered, my relationship suffered, I lost touch with friends, and it was a real moment in my life where I had to stop and realize that I'd been on 24/7, not only trying to be a mum, but also trying to prove myself as as worthy of the promotion that I've been given, of the investment that they've made in me and moving me over to the US. I was thinking about work, feeling guilty about not doing enough, not being there enough for my team, and I realized that something had to change. And since then, I've consistently built my own practice in focusing on what I need to be my best self. And I think of it like a colander. There's a lot of holes in us that can easily drain everything through that, unless we are aware of where we need to plug those holes and where we need to continue to pour in. Then we'll find out that we're much more depleted than we realized. And so I've noticed, since I've done a lot of this work on myself, the the ability for me to create an impact in the work I do has significantly changed. And I don't have it all figured out yet, by the way, but I do know a lot more about where my non-negotiables are, where my boundaries are, what I'm willing to say yes to, what I'm willing to say no to. So with that, Stephanie, is there anything that's come up in the poll that you want to share with the group?
I was going to say we had 86 responses, and the biggest one that we saw in there was about family, being able to prioritize time with family, time with friends, and really having energy left over. So that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing here is you see the word family, energy, word family balance, like it comes back to that.
Yeah, that's great. And a very, like I said earlier, just knowing that other people are in the same boat as you, feeling the same way. It's reassuring to know you're not alone, and ultimately that this isn't a you problem, right? And this is something I'll come on and talk about just now. This isn't a problem of our own capability. This is far more broad-reaching than that. So, next question for you all. How full does your plate feel right now? And I want you to just drop your own words into the chat. Overflowing, yeah. A lot of that, yeah. No, you're not alone. 110% full, yeah. Drowning. Yeah. Stretched. Yeah. Overwhelmed, overloaded, overflowing. Too many plates, not enough hands. I get it. I get it. Wow. Yeah. Can see all of those. Yeah. So, I mean, say no more. This speaks for itself. The Fast and Furious, yeah. The commonality between what you're all experiencing here is it's normal, but it's not normal, right? So here's something I want to. So I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'm going to go through this. There's going to be interaction, but I'm also going to share some information with you. So there might be some listening going on, a little bit of teaching from me, but that's what I want to spend a bit of time doing now, is sharing with you why this feels the way it feels. So I want to begin here by saying to you that the pressure isn't in your head. It is structural. It isn't personal. And the first piece of information I want to share with you is there was a book called The No Club by a lady called Linda Babcock, and she's been on a bunch of podcasts as well. So if you want to go and check her out, listen to it, or even read the book, I'd recommend it. But her team looked into who absorbs the work that keeps organizations running but doesn't necessarily lead to promotion. It's what they call office housework. So in their research, they found that women are asked to and do take on a lot more non-promotable work, significantly more than men. And they say yes to these requests far more often. Women carry the majority of invisible emotional labor, both at work and at home. And additionally, they found that the more competent that you are, the more gets added to your plate. And so what does non-promotable work actually look like? Well, here's a couple of examples. Might be, for example, office housework, like do you plan the team offsite? Do you order food? Do you take meeting notes? Do you organize holiday parties? Are you informally mentoring junior staff without necessarily getting the recognition for it? Are you covering for people who are absent? Are you onboarding new hires unofficially? Coordinating logistics for projects led by other people? Are you the fixer, the person that everyone goes to with the problems? Now, it may not be that you experience all of these things, but this is just a general pattern that's been found to be the case in a lot of organizations, that this work is necessary to keep organizations running, but it doesn't necessarily show up in your performance review or in a promotion. So something to just watch out for and notice. And if you want any more information on this, then I recommend this book. And building on that is this, I want to again reinforce this idea that this isn't, if you're feeling a sense of burnout or overwhelm or overloadedness, this isn't a personal failing. It might feel like a personal failure at times, but it's actually 3 structural things stacked on top of each other. And I want to spend a few minutes here just explaining these to you so you can see what's going on in the broader system of your experience. So at the bottom there is what I call the structural load. So let's start here at the base. This is the work itself. These are the things that are asked of you, the projects you're asked to deliver, the expectations that are set of you. And if you have a family at home, that doesn't pause when your workday finishes. And so research shows, again, that women are asked to do a lot more work that doesn't necessarily advance them. Significantly more. And that isn't because we don't know how to push back necessarily, but it's really because this is the way our systems were designed. And this is especially true for women in around the mid-career stage, where work often coincides with peak family demands, peak caregiving, whether that's for parents, for kids. And also it's at a time when we're trying to climb our career ladder, so peak responsibility at work as well. So these three things happening at the same time don't lend themselves to a lot of balance or a lot of energy. And it's worth noting that it's not you that's failing at this point, it's all these things happening at once. The second layer here is on top of that structural load is how we have been conditioned, so patterns that we've absorbed over our lifetimes about being good, about being helpful. So if we remember back from session 1 as well, we talked about the inner game, the narratives that shape how we show up. So when we look at those, they came from years and years of being praised and recognized for being agreeable, for being helpful, for being prepared, for being accommodating, not being a problem, not making a fuss. And so, being good meant being kind of easy and uncomplicated. We learned this at school, we learned it at home, we learned it early in our jobs, and in the feedback that we've been given throughout our careers. So when the load gets heavy, our response is generally to say yes to things, to take on more, to do it with good grace. And again, it's because we were rewarded for doing it that way earlier in our lives. So it's a learned behavior. And then finally, again, sort of when we think about burnout or overwhelm, overload, this is the top layer we don't really talk about as much, which is what's happening in our nervous system, in our body. We have 2 main settings. We have activated and on and recovering. And most of us live in the first one and rarely in the second one. And after years and years of staying on and activated, we're answering emails as we're dropping kids off at school, we're taking work calls, we're never quite resting when we're on vacation, we're maybe taking our laptops with us. This all ends up having a physical cost. Might be physically, it might be in our sleep, our digestion, our patience with our friends and family, or our immune system. So, when we talk about burnout or energy depletion, what we're actually describing is our nervous system that's been running on activation for a very long time without adequate recovery in between. So before I go any further, I want to just land this, that what we've been calling perhaps something that feels like a personal failure, like we can't do it all, we're not enough, is not actually a personal failure. It's a result of all of these things stacked on top of each other. And because of this, because we can see it for what it is, it does mean that it gets addressable. Doesn't mean it's easy, but that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the session now. Stephanie, if there's any chats that it'd be worth referencing, if you do the honors, because I'm
Yeah,
not
you're
able
good.
to do
I was gonna
Good.
let you, we did have some comments when you were talking about sort of like all of the things that you find yourself doing. There were a couple of acknowledgements, yes, to all of the
Yeah.
above.
Yeah.
We did have one comment. I feel like I wake up to work, finish work to go to work, and finish work fast again to go back to home and work again. So like when you talk about just being on all the
Yeah.
time, like I think that's resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, this topic is an important one, and it's also, by what we're seeing now, a very common one as well. So, okay, this myth of balance. Now, you've seen some dates here on the screen. That don't worry, this isn't a history lesson, but I do like context. I really do like the being able to put how we're feeling into a bigger context so we can make more sense of it. So the myth that we've been sold is that we can have it all, that we can simultaneously have the family, have the job, have the eat healthily as we want, drink enough water, exercise, do yoga, take a walk, be out in nature, that we can also achieve this work-life balance. And these myths have really set us up to feel like we can't succeed at either of these things. So the first thing I want to do is just call it out that this is, the more we try to have it all and achieve this sense of balance, the more we end up burning ourselves out. It's like trying to keep on a stove, trying to keep every burner on full heat when we actually can't do that. We can have a lot and we can have it all perhaps, but not all at once and not all at the same intensity. So I want to quickly take you back in time to give you a bit of context here. So before, and this is as it relates to this message about being able to have it all. So pre-1940s was before the Second World War, and this was where for a long time women's roles were really domestic. Working outside the home was a sign of economic hardship, not necessarily of aspiration. So you really had one sphere to stay within. And then during the 1940s, World War II, millions of women entered the workforce because there was this big labour shortage. And so there was this narrative, this message, you can step out of the home because we need you. And then post-war, 1950s, it was back to the happy housewife age where women were brought back into their domestic roles. So, you had your moment at work. Now it's out of the workforce, back into domesticity. And then in the 60s and 70s, that's where this new second wave of feminism came about, where women were entering the professional workforce. And there were a lot of policy changes that supported this. And you can, the message was you can have a career. So then fast forward to the 1980s, you can have your career, you can have a marriage, you can have kids, you can also have a body, you can do aerobics, you can look good all at the same time. And then as we get to the 1990s and the 2010s, and the book that Sheryl Sandberg wrote, Lean In, some of the cracks started to appear here. There are another few books written as well, where, being asked to push harder, being asked for more, at this point, we started to see the cost of that. And now, when we think about having it all, what does that mean? It means having a career, working for pay, which is often required and not optional given the cost of living these days, running a household, higher, more intensive parenting standards than we've had before, maintaining a career, perhaps while caring for aging parents, also being visibly and personally branded on social media. wanting to look good, doing it all as well. So this having it all message hasn't gone away. It's kind of been doubled down on. And so calling it out as something that has shifted dramatically over the last 60, 70 years is just something I wanted to share as a context point here, because it hasn't, the question becomes, well, is it any wonder that we're feeling this level of burnout when work is always on through technology, parenting standards are so high, so social media has really amplified this level of comparison as well. So what's a better way of thinking around balance and work-life balance? Well, I look at it in four areas. Number one is about understanding much more clearly our energy levels, where we are putting it, where we are receiving it, and where it's draining. I'll come on to this in a moment. The second is around alignment. What are we saying yes to? Why are we saying yes to it? And what are we saying no to? And how easy is that? And how conscious are we of the things that we're saying yes to and why? And the third area is around fluidity. And what I mean here is that what balance looks like changes by season. So what stage of life that you're in. So what worked in your 20s and 30s isn't necessarily going to work in your 40s and 50s or 60s. What works during a launch phase isn't what works during a recovery phase. And so being aware of the season of life that we're in and the shifting priorities around us is a key part to being able to choose on purpose what is important to us at this season, at this stage in our life. And that leads me on to, the fourth point there is, how do we choose on purpose and not just by default, not expecting the same thing in our 20s as we are in our 40s, 50s, and when things around us are changing. So I think this might be section 4 of the workbook. I haven't got the workbook open in front of me right now, but I think there's a question which relates to this. But just think about it for a minute and think about what season you're in right now. How would you describe that? And if you want to put it in the chat, you can use any words you like to describe it. It's difficult to say no to a task. Yep, I am going to come on and talk a bit about that in a minute, Evelyn. It is. Yeah, launch phase. Okay. So here is what I was referring to earlier, is that energy becomes, or rather capacity becomes, an energy problem, not a time problem. So how many of us have at some point in our careers been on a time management course? How to block schedule in your calendar, how to prioritize, etc. Well, time management certainly has a value for us, but it has a ceiling. And when it comes to our energy, that's where our bottleneck is. And I want to just dive into this now for a moment. So, there really is no calendar trick that's going to make a depleted person sustainably high performing. Let's walk through these 4 different energies. So we have physical energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy, and mental energy. And we need to pay attention to these different areas. So the foundation is our physical energy. How much sleep do we get? Are we moving our bodies? Are we eating the right food? Are we hydrated? So when we're depleted physically, this might look like, getting sick after you just leave on vacation, getting tension headaches, maybe some form of IBS or something like that. Maybe this just low level sinking feeling in the bottom of your stomach, or maybe you're feeling wired but exhausted at bedtime. So you're shattered, but you just can't sleep because your brain's running. Emotional energy. So this is about your relationships, your mood, the cost that you might experience from suppressing what you really feel. So ignoring feelings and just pushing them away. So what does emotional depletion look like? That looks like snapping at your family, perhaps after a normal work day, or that feeling of dread when you know you've got to open your inbox and you just don't want to. Feeling disconnected in meetings or numb. Or maybe you just can't summon any enthusiasm for the things that you love anymore. Or maybe you just feel just blah, meh, disconnected, just feeling a sense of kind of apathy. The next one is mental energy. So this is around your focus, your decision making, what depletes you between meetings. And so this can, mental depletion can look like decision fatigue. So I don't know how many of you just cannot figure out what to pick for dinner. That's something that I struggle with. You just can't be bothered to make the decision of what we're going to have to eat today. Rereading the same paragraph time and time again, or scrolling when you know what you need to do is focus. Forgetting what you were about to say. All of these things show us that there's a depletion in our mental sharpness and our mental energy. And the last one is spiritual energy. And this isn't about being religious at all. It's more about a sense of connection with your meaning and purpose, the why behind why we do what we do. Are we getting up in the morning? And so, and this really is connected with our values. Are we connected with the things that light us up and that fuel us in a really meaningful, purposeful way? Spiritual depletion looks like us feeling like, well, what's the point? I just don't care anymore. I'm going through the motions, even when work's going well. Success doesn't really feel like anything. I feel sort of disconnected from why I even started this in the first place. And maybe you get a great achievement, but you just feel a bit hollow, a bit empty. So I'm not going to rush over this. I want to just give you a minute for this to sink in. And then I'd love for you in the chat just to put what energy is lowest for you right now. You can use a letter, just like P, E, M, or S, or you could share something more. Oh, thank you.
Or you can just drop it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to say, Crystal, the all of the above is actually if there was an option for that. Yeah.
Right now, mental is far and away the number one.
So yeah, this kind of just fogginess, can't make a decision, too many tabs open in my brain, can't stop the thoughts from whirring round, but can't really get to an end point. Yeah. And it's hard. And think about the amount of energy that takes, just being on all the time. And then not only is there work, there's also the stuff going on in the world. Whether you're reading news on social media or you're just trying to keep up with everything and everyone, it's a real drain.
And Sadie, I was going to say in the chat while you were going through each of the energy areas, but there was a lot of comments in the chat about different activities we're all engaging in, sort of like a self-soothing or a distraction from whatever area maybe was an energy problem.
Okay. I can just, it would be great to, and I can see a few people as well mentioning menopause. So actually, it's an important point here that there is some biochemical, physiological related contribution to how we're feeling as well. And certainly in some of the clients that I work with, that's part of the care is to go and actually, do we need to go and see a physician just to get our hormones levels checked? And Stephanie, what was some of the comments around self-soothing, if you could?
Eating, social media. There's a lot of that. I mean, even just coming home to make simple decisions, a lot of comments about I'm done for the day.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, you know, when you do feel exhausted and depleted, making good choices for ourselves is hard. So do I go and work out, or do I just crash? And it's it's understandable why we would just want to kind of just crash, because we just haven't got the energy anymore, even though there's a narrative in our head saying, oh, you really should go on a walk right now. And that doesn't help either, because it just compounds the guilt of, well, I should be doing this, but I just don't want to.
And there were a few comments about just feeling like everything is on, like all of the drawers are open. There's difficulty trying to figure out where do I put my attention. Everything's drawing for my, attention. So I think that was a lot of the comments that were coming through as well.
Yeah. How do I know what I need to prioritize right now? Because there's so many things I need to be doing. And if I don't know about you, but if somebody, I don't know, if somehow miraculously you get a free hour, there's so much that you could fill the hour with that you end up just confused by what actually you want to do. You can't actually make use of that hour by resting. Feels like we have to fill it with things as well. I'll carry on because this is diving in. So I mentioned at the very beginning that there are some very common patterns that are huge energy drainers for us. And so I want to start by saying these patterns that we'll go through now, they're not personal character flaws. They are learned patterns that many, many, many women struggle with. So the first thing we need to do is identify them and become aware of them so that we can start to figure out how to begin to change them, right? So I'm going to walk through these with some examples. And I want, as I'm walking through them, just think which of these apply to me. Number one is the hypercompetence trap. So the more you do, the more gets handed to you. So maybe you're someone that always gets handed the rescue project when things are starting to go sideways, or you're the one that can't take any vacation, any leave because nobody else has been trained on what you do. You're a single point of failure. Maybe you're always asked to work on things that are over and above what is in your scope because she's somebody that just knows what to do. And this is a sneaky one because this is something that's kind of rewarded in work environments as well. Like, if she's good at something, she'll get it done and it's applauded as well. So that's, it's double-edged. There's some reward in being this way and there's some cost in being this way as well. The second one is always being available. Now, I'll hold my hand up. This was definitely it still is to a large extent, but I've become a lot better at this. So the person who's always checking emails in the weekend, or first thing as they wake up, they're checking their inbox and getting their responses out. Replying to your boss at 11 o'clock at night so you don't seem to be unresponsive. Getting anxious when you can't see your notifications for a couple of hours. You're the person that maybe apologizes for a slow response. So, sorry, I didn't reply sooner, and maybe it's only been like 45 minutes. And maybe you're the person that brings the laptop away on holiday with you, just in case. And then there's over-functioning. So this is the person who feels like they need to manage everybody else's emotions, make sure everyone's okay all the time. So I don't like conflict. I want to make sure everyone's feeling all right. So maybe you're the person who's sending the follow-up email because other people forgot, or maybe you're the person who just senses exactly what mood everybody's in the moment they join the call, or you want to manage everybody else's reaction to some news before you've even had the chance to process it yourself. The next one is apologizing and over-explaining. So this is the person that tries to make everything slightly softer. So I'm sorry to bother you, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is justifying perhaps why you had to leave on time yesterday, or that you had to take a lunch break, or maybe it's somebody who says no to something, but then says, actually, I could try, rather than holding firm to a no. And it's maybe the person that adds like a qualifying statement to everything, like, I could be wrong, but something like that. And then there's the 110% tax. So this is, I know some of you will resonate with this. This is the person who turns in A+ work when B+ work would be okay. I know so many people like this, and myself included, where I would have worked hours and hours and hours on formatting a presentation that really would have been okay. Maybe the second or third draft in. It's being meticulous about putting all of the quality into an email when a quick reply would have done, or it's the really heavy preparation for a meeting that you maybe get 5 minutes to talk. And I'm not saying that, high standards are a bad thing. I'm saying it's recognizing when high standards are really necessary, and when we are just putting those extra additional requirements on ourselves when nobody else might be really asking for them or expecting them. And then the last one here is the default to yes. So this is the person who says yes, agreeing really before even checking if it's something we really want to do or if we really have the capacity to do. Again, this is something I've fallen into many times, is saying yes to. I was brought up, my mom was somebody that just drilled it into me, just say yes to everything. You can always say no later, but just say yes to everything. Seeing it as an opportunity, which I'm grateful for. It definitely served me, but where it didn't serve me was later on, when I just couldn't say no to anything. Volunteering, being happy to help, showing that me helping was a sign of my responsibility, and that being responsible means I'm a good person. Saying yes to the meeting that's at 5:30, even though I really wanted to go and pick my daughter up, things like that. So, I think interested as well to know which one of these resonates for you. I don't know if we could do another quick poll if it's easy or not, but I was somebody that was always on. I was somebody that was, I have one memory of being at Disney with my daughter and friends, and my family was over to stay. And I was on vacation, but I had to reply to somebody needed to have a quote very important call with me. And I had to find a quiet spot in the middle of this theme park to take this call, which ultimately absolutely could have waited. I didn't say no. I was trying to race around this theme park to try and find a space that was quiet enough for me to take this call. And I look back on it now and I'm like, did I really need to say yes to that? I'm sure there could have been an alternative approach.
Sadie, there's been lots
Yeah.
of validation in the comments about a lot of these, all six of them. I think what's interesting is to hear some of the comments about feelings of guilt or
Yeah.
anxiety around saying no or acknowledging that there needs to be some pushback. So I
Yeah.
was wondering if maybe you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah. I mean, this feeling of guilt comes up because we believe that saying no says something about ourselves. We're worried about the judgment that we're going to get from other people if we hold this boundary. I'm going to come on and talk about boundaries in a minute. And it is a learned behavior to say yes to things, to say, to do more, to be more, because it's part of our identity. And so when we start to say no to things, it's very uncomfortable, and we are very concerned about the judgment that we're going to get from people. And at its core, at the very heart of it, is we fear rejection. We fear that we're going to let people down and we're going to be rejected. Now, in reality, is that true or not? Who knows? But it's a story that's going on in our head about, we want to please people, we want to show up for people, and we're going to let people down and they're going to think badly of me and I'm going to be rejected. And what does that say about me as a person? So it's very deep. It's not as easy as just saying no. It's about changing your relationship with your priorities, and what you value most about yourself and yourself in the organization and the people that you're around. Because, this is a very cliched example, but cliches exist for a reason. And you'll all know this, but what's the most important thing that when you travel on an aircraft, that they tell you to do in case of an emergency? It's to secure your own oxygen mask first. Because if you can't protect yourself, if you can't serve yourself, then how can you serve others? How can you be your best self for others? And so that's, we feel that that's a kind of selfish view, because that's how we've been taught to believe, that it's selfish to think of ourselves first. But really, it's a healthy way to operate at your best and to be your best self, is to take care of yourself first. Now, I'm going to talk a bit more about boundaries, because it's not as easy as just set a boundary, you'll be fine. Hopefully that helps give it some context. So with these patterns, I think, what I wanted to do with this part of the session is to help you name it out loud to yourself. So the only way you can start to think about breaking these patterns is to become aware of it, is to know it's there, is to name it. And so there are a couple of ways that we can start to break these patterns out. The first is just acknowledging it when it's happening. Now, this is the hard part. When do you know that you're in the hypercompetence trap, or that you're people pleasing showing up? But the key here is to start to recognize it in yourself and start to acknowledge it in yourself, and give yourself that chance to pause before you take the next step. This is exactly what we did in the last session as well. It's acknowledging, recognizing what's going on, taking a 5-second pause, and then making a conscious choice about what you do next, whether you say yes or no. The second way to start to break these patterns is to write them down. So if you don't catch them in the moment, at the end of every day, write down a sticky note, a journal, in your notebook, whatever, just what was the patterns that were coming up that day? Because writing it down gets it out, gets it external to you. And once it's on paper, it actually stops running in the background. So you can make a lot more, choices around that then. And then the third thing you can do is actually talk it out loud to somebody that you trust. So maybe it's a friend, an accountability partner, a co-worker, a coach, somebody that you're working with. Like, I'm really stuck in this people-pleasing trap, and I really want to break it. It's showing up again and again. And saying it to somebody else, it makes it harder to pretend it's not happening. So a few things to start to do to recognize it and to just articulate it in a way that will help you, help it prevent it just living on autopilot. And it's the thing driving you. You become aware of it. You get to see it for what it is, and you get to make a choice around that then. All right, so boundary. Now, I do have a bit of a boundaries are a word that are thrown around, or boundary is a word that's thrown around a lot these days, and they're important, but I also hear them being used a bit like a band-aid, like, oh, you just need to set a boundary for that. And boundaries are very hard to set and to uphold. They're very important because while, yes, they're important to take care of ourselves, they're actually really strategic decisions for us about where we're choosing for our energy to go. And if you go back to the energy wheel that I mentioned a moment ago, and you think about where your energy is most depleted, paying attention to that helps tell you where to set these boundaries. So if you are feeling emotionally depleted, your emotional energy is depleted, then this might say that we need to look at setting a boundary around relationships and rest. If you're feeling depleted, if your mental energy is depleted, then that might tell you that you need to look at setting boundaries around context switching and decision load. And then if your spiritual energy is depleted, so you just lost your mojo, you've lost your why, then this might be telling you that we need to look at setting boundaries against doing work that really doesn't matter to you. And here, what I want to try and land as well is that whenever we say yes to something, ultimately it means we're saying no to something else. I want you to just pause with that for a minute. When we say yes to something, it means we're saying no to something else. And if we're saying yes to a 5:30 meeting, what are we saying no to? There's no right or wrong answer here. What we say yes to, it might be the right thing, but it's just being conscious that we're making those trade-offs. We know what the trade-offs are and we're choosing them rather than us defaulting into them. So boundaries they're important for our self-care, right? But they're very important strategically to help us protect our energy and to lean into the things that matter most to us in this particular season of our lives. Now, I will say, somebody mentioned this in the chat earlier, like something about saying, can't say no to a task that's given to me or something like that. That's fair. There are power dynamics at play. So these boundaries don't exist in a vacuum. Context is really important when we think about what's possible for us to set boundaries. So before we get into any kind of scripts around how we can set boundaries, then I really want to make sure it's clear that there are power dynamics and context that we want to consider as we think about setting boundaries. So if you are, if your boss is asking you to do something, it's not going to be as easy to just say, that's a no, because you're in an organizational context where it can feel riskier to say no to things with unequal power dynamics. Equally, there is importance in thinking about timing. Sometimes the boundary you want to set is the right one, but the timing isn't right. And so how we think about setting that through planned discussion and conversation is also important. And lastly, cultural expectations. So different places across different parts of the world, boundaries have different connotations. So we have to consider the wider context and the wider power dynamics before we can just easily say, oh, well, we'll just set boundaries and that will take care of things. I don't know what your different contexts are, but I do want you to just use that as a backdrop and a frame of reference. And then here are some scripts, right? Here are some tools that, and you don't have to use these. These are just some examples of where you can start to think about where a boundary or where some preservation is needed. All right, so number one, this might be about making trade-offs. So I can take that on if I drop this, which is the priority here. So going back to, preserving your energy, that's the goal here, is to make sure that we're not over-committing and depleting ourselves. If we have to make a trade-off, whether that's in your personal life, maybe it's about dropping kids off or going to a soccer game, or if it's about taking on additional responsibilities at work, think back to the promotable and unpromotable work. I can take that on if I drop something else. So help me figure out which is the priority. Number two is redirect. So I don't think that's where I add most value. Would this be a better fit? Number three is what I call the buffer. So this is giving ourselves a bit of breathing space. And it also is very helpful because it interrupts this default yes pattern. So is it okay if I think about this and come back to you tomorrow, this afternoon, whenever? Number four is this hard stop. So I can do it. I do have a hard stop at 5:30, if that's okay. And then the fifth one is the hardest one, because we don't really often find we have any justification for it, but that's the point, is the clean decline. I'm not going to be able to do that, I'm afraid. And just, without apologizing, without over explaining, it feels hard to do. So yeah, these scripts, and these are just 5 examples, are here to help you protect your relationships, protect your energy by being very clear and not apologetic. It doesn't need to be over explained, but it does take practice, and it does take, as I mentioned in the previous slide, understanding the context. So right now, I want you to open the workbook. I want you to pick a real situation that you're facing, and I want you to just practice writing out a script for it. It doesn't need to be something you actually use today or tomorrow, but just start to play around with the script that you could use. So think of the situation. Think about what words you could actually use. There's a couple of great books actually on this topic, which I'd be happy to follow up with after the session, which they've been very helpful for me to actually think about how I can phrase things, and these are traffic light system, red, yellow, green, which are green, like light boundaries, and which are red, completely non-negotiable boundaries. So just spend a few minutes or a few seconds just drafting something, and if anyone wants to share an example in the chat, that would be good.
Sadie, while everybody's jotting that down, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, that we've already heard from a lot of our members that it can be a little bit nerve-wracking to push back, to kind of set the boundaries.
Yeah.
But is it really a situation where they have to kind of go it alone? Is it maybe depending on, obviously, on the situation, like could it be a conversation with the leader to say, like, this is something that I, learned in the Women at Saffron session. I think there are some things that I can work on myself, and involving them versus feeling like you have to kind of go it alone and try to figure it out by yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful suggestion. And again, like the context applies to all of this. If you work with someone who is a, open-minded, collaborative person, supportive person, I think that is absolutely the best outcome, where you maybe it is a bit of a negotiation, and it's about being open and transparent about how you're finding things and how you're feeling at the moment. The first point being open and sharing, and finding collaborative solutions could absolutely work. And that in and of itself is a boundary. It's a strategy to set up your own, situation in a way that's going to work better for you. I'm just reading a comment here. I'm a project manager, and when you realize that you can't do something because you don't know, don't like it, you don't know how to say it. I think that's where having a trusted person that you can talk through the situation with, and who can help you frame it in a way, help you position it in a way which is going to be as effective as possible. What are your thoughts, Stephanie, on that?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back, you were talking about all of the different, like there's different traps that we can fall into, but I think it's also that fear of how we're being perceived by others, that we're not the expert or we don't know it as well. But I think it's fair, and I think it's reasonable for others to realize, like, we're not going to know everything. So I think, yeah, for sure, having your network of people you can help you kind of reframe things or position it in a way that doesn't feel vulnerable or unsafe.
Yeah.
But then also just recognizing, like, it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah, that's partly why we're doing these sessions, right? Is because we realize we don't know everything, and it's actually, we're all in the same boat together. We all don't know as much as we would like about how to tackle some of these situations. So using this, and you've got your local chapters as well, that there's now a community where you can say, look, I really want to be addressing this. Is there anyone else in this group that's felt similarly, or that's had a similar conversation, or can help me think about how I might approach it?
Yeah. And Janice had put in a really insightful comment in the chat about, sometimes it's just about being able to communicate. I don't think that I can do it all. I need your help to help me prioritize. Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing that our capacity has limits, and reaching the limit of our capacity doesn't mean we have to find more capacity. It means, and it doesn't also mean that we're failing because we haven't got more capacity. It means it's time to be honest with ourselves about the limits that we have. Because, with the drive today, with AI for optimization of everything, everybody is being asked to do more than we realistically have capacity for. And people who are capable, people who care, who want to do a good job, end up, understandably taking on a lot more. And if we can't keep our own oxygen mask on, then it's not going to be sustainable. It will be sustainable for a very short period of time, which I am coming on to now, actually. So, how do we sustain this? So let's assume for a minute we're still operating at high capacity, but we've made a few shifts. I want to talk a bit about recovery. So if you think about any high performing person in their professional field, like think about an athlete, a surgeon, they aren't successful because they just continually grind harder. They have to recover very deliberately. And if they don't recover, then they won't perform. And we need to think about ourselves in a similar way. We're operating at a sprint for a sprint pace for the duration of a marathon. So it's not going to be sustainable. So how do they recover and how should we think about recovering? Number one is micro recovery. So taking real breaks. So this isn't just like turning your chair away from your screen and scrolling for a bit, thinking that you're having a break. This is taking a very intentional, like, mind break. The second step is to protect your recovery. So don't make sure that you block certain little periods of time out, whether it's at the end of the week, the beginning of the week, the middle of the day, the end of the day, whatever it is, you have a small but dedicated period of time that you're able to rest and recover, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's working out, maybe it's playing with your kids, whatever recovery looks like. And then find some daily non-negotiables for you. Get clear on what matters most. Is it your sleep? Is it movement? Is it your nutrition? Is it spending time with your kids or spending time with loved ones? There are loads of things I'm sure we would love to do more of, but if you can find one or two things that daily are your non-negotiables that you prioritize above everything else. And sleep is a really important one. So if anybody's struggling with sleep, I would pay attention there. But just pick one or two things. They're not luxuries. They're not. You have permission, and often we don't give ourselves permission to prioritize ourselves. And the last is, if you can do it, a really nice thing to do is a weekly energy review. So let's take a look at where my energy went this week. Not my time, but my energy. When did I feel really full? Like, when did I feel energized? When did I feel great? And when did I feel depleted and exhausted? Are there any patterns there? Was it, when I was doing certain tasks? Was it when I was surrounded by certain people? Was it when I was in a particular place? Finding the patterns where we are fueled and depleted gives us very important data. So that is one of the practices I would really like you to take away from this is, what did I do this week? What did I do that only I could do? What should have been redirected, declined, or delegated? And where did my energy go that I want back? So where is it being spent that I don't want it to go anymore? And just pay attention as well. When I say non-negotiables, like, do you feel a resistance to that? Does it feel like, oh, I couldn't possibly? Because even if you feel like you can't, maybe that's something to start questioning a bit more. All right. So bringing this to the end, what are we leaving with today? Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, how you think about energy. So this is about capacity and not about your time. And how do you think about balance? So balance, as you remember, I used a picture of a bike there. Balance is dynamic. It doesn't mean equal. It doesn't mean having equal time in work as in all other areas of my life. It means balancing things according to your energy, according to what matters, according to the season of your life. Okay, number 2 is the patterns that we named. and how you can notice them and try and interrupt them in real time before you just say yes on autopilot. We talked about boundaries and the scripts, and those aren't exhaustive, they're just examples. There are many, many more ways that we can think about bringing boundaries and non-negotiables into being without burning bridges, without breaking relationships, that doesn't need to be, and without putting ourselves at risk either. We could do a whole session just on that, I think. And then opportunity to ask yourself, like, what is a non-negotiable for me? What do I actually really want in this season right now? So as we draw this to an end, I would love you to just think about what's one thing you would either stop doing, start doing, or change this week. Something small enough that you'll actually do it. But if you could throw anything in the chat, that would be great, because we're going to capture all these. And then I would also love to know, I don't know whether we can get this poll here. I know that it might be a bit difficult to do it in the moment, but I'd love to understand a bit more about what was most useful for you today. And actually, maybe what I'll do, just in the interest of practicality, is maybe if we could, send this out afterwards. But what was most useful? Which pattern do you think is hardest for you to interrupt? How likely do you think you would be to able to apply something like this? And yeah, I would love to hear more about what you would like to hear more of or do more of in the next session. Just going to let this flow for a little bit, because we have a few minutes.
And Sadie, we can send out the questions afterwards to give everybody a chance to respond.
I guess there's a lot here, and I didn't know how much time we'd have left. But yeah, we can send these out. I love the word cloud. It's brilliant. Okay, well, so I'm leaving my my details up here for a minute as well. So, I mean, I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to work with this team now for a couple of occasions. I do work with women one-on-one and in small groups. And so if anyone wants to connect with me offline, I've got all my contact details here. And if anything resonated and you want to talk more, if there was some particular part of this that really landed for you, or you thought, I'd really like to dive into that a bit more, you can connect with me in a bunch of different ways. And I'll share my contact details with you through when this information all gets circulated. Yeah, there's a few more minutes left. If anybody has any questions they want me to answer, or just comments.
There was a question. Can we have access to the first meeting slides? We can send out those slides as well when we send out this one, so you've got access to both sessions.
Yeah, great. And Stephanie, did the first session, was the recording shared as well?
Yes, but I think there might be some individuals who are not on the Saffron network who might have difficulty accessing it. So we'll have to figure out another way to get that over to those members.
Great. Okay, yeah, looks like a couple of people might want the first session's recording. Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us today. Sadie, thank you, as always, so much for all the wisdom and insight. We'll definitely share the recordings for the first and the second session, along with all the workbooks that we've shared. For those of you who do have local chapters, we do encourage you, share this with your teams, with your members. If you are in a leadership role, this is information that you can share with your teams as well. So we definitely encourage you to share that. And if there's other, resources, if you want to reach out to the committee, we're definitely here to help support in whatever way that's needed. So thank you so much. I'll open it up. Is there any other questions, or does anybody want to come off mute to say any comments for Sadie?
I think there was a hand raised.
I know, as I say, I saw somebody's hand raised.
Oh, maybe it was an accidental hand raise.
Maybe it was a wave.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sadie.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.